Hey there, welcome to my review for God of War Ghost of Sparta. This is the second game originally made for the PSP by Ready at Dawn Studios. Of course I'm playing the remastered version on the PlayStation 3. As usual, because this is the last God of War game I'm going to be playing in my review series, there will most definitely be some spoilers for the other games. So, jump out now and come back when you've played them all, or if you'd like you can just get caught up by watching my reviews. I'll leave a little link in the card in the top right hand corner, and you can just come back whenever you're ready. Ghost of Sparta is also a shorter experience, so it comes to about 4.5 hours in total. But once again, I did play on easy mode, so if you're worried about it being too short, maybe put it on normal or hard for yourself and you'll get maybe another hour or an hour and a half out of the game. Okay, so with that all out of the way, let's jump in. God of War Ghost of Sparta takes place between God of War 1 and God of War 2. Kratos has a vision at the very start of the game of a woman, and he alludes to it revealing some information about his past. When he finds this woman, we find out it's his mother, Callisto. She tells Kratos that his long thought to be dead brother, Deimos, is still alive. And so you embark on a quest that takes you through the city of Atlantis, Sparta, and even Death's domain, in an effort to reunite Kratos with his long lost brother Deimos. Just like Chains of Olympus, there is no way that Ghost of Sparta could hope to compete with the graphical expectations of today. But this game is certainly not ugly. It takes you through a whole bunch of different environments just as the last game does, and none of these sections ever overstay their welcome. And of course the gameplay feels very similar to that of Chains of Olympus, and therefore the original God of War game. You use the Blades of Athena in this game, and as always they feel great to use, but there's a few new powers and a new weapon in there that makes the combat feel brand new again, despite the fact that we're in the 6th game in the series. One of the new powers is more of a modifier, called Thera's Bane, which gives Kratos' blades a fire ability, and you use this for certain enemy types. I thought this was going to suck, but the more I used it, the more I ended up enjoying it. The enemies that you need to use them for are used sparingly, and you can use the modifier to just take care of enemies a little bit quicker. The new weapon that's introduced in this game is the Arms of Sparta. It's a traditional Spartan spear and shield combo, but it allows for some great variety in combat. I often found myself switching between the Blades of Athena and the Arms of Sparta. This isn't because one of them is better than the other, or they're both not very good, it's because they're both fantastic. And when I was using one, I missed using the other one. Both of these weapons really help to create a great variety during gameplay. And the new powers in the game actually feel new despite being very similar in premise, due to differences in the presentation that they have. Ready at Dawn clearly has a knack for making it feel like a familiar game, yet a new experience all at the same time. The 3 powers that you get access to in the game are as follows. The Eye of Atlantis, which shoots an arc of lightning at enemies. The Scourge of Uranus, some kind of void that travels around the area dealing damage to enemies. And the Horn of Boreas, which summons the power of the north wind and creates a frost cyclone and freezes enemies in the immediate area. And just like Chains of Olympus, this game also gives you loads of red orbs. By the end of the game, once again I had everything upgraded to max, and I still had loads of red orbs to spare. But because the game is as short as it is, I didn't really mind that I was progressing quite as quickly as I was. The puzzles in this game are probably the lightest they've ever been in a God of War game. Most of them were just finding out that you can't do something yet, and you'd have to progress forward so that you get a new item, and then you'd be able to come back there later on, and be able to get through that doorway. If you've always loved the puzzles in the God of War games, this might upset you a bit, but in my personal opinion, I didn't find that it detracted from the experience in any way at all. Okay, let's talk about the game's story for a minute. God of War Ghost of Sparta probably has the best story in any of the God of War games, be that PSP or the mainline games. The story in the mainline games are good, but they're all about a quest for vengeance, and this one is far more personal. This gives a much deeper insight into why Kratos hates the gods in the way that he does, rather than just Ares. It also gives some context as to why Kratos dismisses the warning of the gods in God of War 2. Alrighty then, now we're in the spoiler section. So, as usual, if you don't want this game spoiled for you, I heavily suggest that you go play it for yourself and jump out now. So, let's start from the beginning. When Kratos has this vision, he tells Athena that he's going to go on a quest to reveal and maybe even change his past. Athena, though, tells him to just let it lie, and of course Kratos ignores her. When Kratos finds his mother and he gets told about how Deimos is still alive, she also tries to tell him about his father. Of course, we all know that it's Zeus because we've already played God of War 2, but I can only assume that because she's so weak, he only hears faint whispers. Because at the end of God of War 2, he clearly still doesn't know that Zeus is his father, because when Athena reveals it to him, he seems shocked. But after she tries to tell Kratos this, it turns out that she's cursed, and she transforms into this monster, and Kratos has to kill her. When you kill her, she transforms back into her human form, and she even thanks her son Kratos for putting her out of her misery, this torment that she's been in for years. After this, you head over to Atlantis, and it is worth saying that you are the reason that Atlantis is underwater, because it didn't always used to be that way. When you free the Titan Thera to get Thera's Bane, the power I was talking about earlier, it ends up sinking the whole of Atlantis. This is why Poseidon hates Kratos so much. Shortly after the Atlantis section, you meet Erinis, Thanatos' daughter. Thanatos, by the way, is the god of death. It turns out that she's looking for him, and so you kill her, which is how you get the Scourge of Erinis. Shortly after that, you arrive in Sparta, and you're praised by the people. This section is, quite frankly, awesome. You don't really do any fighting or puzzle solving, you're just walking around the village. It's awesome to see just how much Kratos' people love him and adore him. And if by this point you're wondering if there's a sex minigame, oh yes, of course, there's a sex minigame. Look at him go, he's got like 6 of them at once, and then when you're finished, you just brush them all aside. What a stud. Towards the end of the Sparta section, there's this little bit where you end up fighting a mirror version of Kratos' younger self. This is a good example of why I think this game has a better story than the other games. It's a lot more personal. At this moment, Kratos is clearly battling with the idea that he could have saved his brother when he was younger. He feels that he should have been strong enough to be able to save him. Oh, and if you're wondering what actually happened to Deimos, don't worry, I'll explain in a little bit. So you fight this mirror version of yourself and you find out that you got to go back to Atlantis to find Death's domain. And on your way out of Sparta you encounter the last Spartan from God of War 2, and he's the guy that gives you the arms of Sparta. So you go back to Atlantis and you find Death's domain. This place is honestly a breath of fresh air, despite the fact that it's filled with death. All of the other games tend to just throw you back into Hades, and after like the 4th time that you do it, it doesn't really feel that special anymore. The way that this place is set up is awesome. It's a place that existed before the Titans and before the gods. The god of death has been there forever, and I think the narrator of the game does an especially good job of setting it up. Now before I talk about the actual finding of Deimos, let's explain what happened to him beforehand. Ares and Zeus chose to take Deimos away because there was a prophecy that foretold that a marked mortal would be the downfall of Olympus. They chose Deimos because of his strange birthmark. The shape of this birthmark is the same shape that Kratos has tattooed on him, which has now become iconic to the series. Ares and Athena are the actual ones that carry out the bidding, and when Kratos tries to stop them, he gets battered away, and this is how he gets the scar on his eye. Already, in this one cinematic where they try to explain what happened to Deimos, this game has explained more about the backstory of Kratos than most of the other games have combined. So, you find Deimos and you set him free, but it turns out he hates your guts because you've left him there for so long to endure this torment from Thanatos. So you both fight it out. Thanatos then interrupts this fight and takes Deimos to Suicide Bluff. Deimos nearly falls, but then Kratos saves him at the last second, and then they fight Thanatos together. This is probably the best boss fight in any of the God of War games. It's not a true feat of gameplay design or anything like that, it's just a really awesome moment. Kratos and his brother Deimos fighting side by side. During the fight, Deimos dies, and then Kratos goes into Super Ultra Mega Screen Shake Red with Rage mode and kills Thanatos almost instantly. He then proceeds to carry Deimos up the mountain. You get to the top and the Gravedigger from the first God of War is back again. He does appear earlier on in the game, but it's not really a significant moment. And not only is he there, but he's already got a grave prepared. So you put Deimos in the grave and the Gravedigger begins to bury him. Kratos then looks out over the cliff and asks himself,
"By the gods, what have I become?"
Death, the destroyer of worlds.
After this, Athena appears, and she says that you can now be elevated to full godhood. You no longer have any ties to the mortal world. And as she's about to do it, Kratos refuses. He slaps her hands away and says the gods will pay for what they've done. As Kratos walks away, Athena whispers, "Forgive me, brother." This is the first time that she actually ever acknowledges in the games that they're both siblings. After the credits, the Gravedigger is back and he places Callisto in a grave of her own next to her son, Deimos, and says that now only one remains, and there's an empty grave next to that, which is clearly meant for Kratos. And that's the end of the game. As I've said throughout this review, this whole story is great because it's far more personal. It further emphasises just how big Sparta is in Kratos' life, and fighting for it is all he's ever wanted to do. It's all he's ever wanted to be as a good Spartan. And this is emphasised in the brief scenes where you see Deimos and Kratos training one another. And it seems rather fitting that at the end of a game all about trying to find your brother, you fight side by side with him, both being the ultimate Spartans. And right at the end of the game, when Kratos refuses the godhood that Athena's about to bestow upon him, it seems that he truly understands now is all that the gods have done for Kratos is ruin his life. And this new understanding is clearly the reason as to why Kratos goes on that rampage in the beginning of God of War 2. It turns out he's not just being a jerk, he's seriously mad at what the gods have done to him, and he doesn't care what they have to say. To close the review out, God of War Ghost of Sparta is absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, it's probably second only to God of War 3. Definitely has the best story of all of the games, and the combat feels great and makes me feel sad that the Arms of Sparta aren't in any of the other games, just as Chains of Olympus did with the Gauntlet of Zeus. And yeah, the game is a shorter experience, but its length is honestly an asset because the story comes to a head in such a quick and satisfying fashion. I would absolutely recommend that you play this game. I am quite frankly astounded that both Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta have turned out to be two of my favourite games for the God of War franchise. These were PSP games made not even by Santa Monica Studios. This is by Ready at Dawn. These are just some guys sitting on the sidelines and they've come out and made a banging God of War game. Twice! Okay guys, that's going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching the God of War Ghost of Sparta review. I hope you enjoyed it. I've finally done it. I finished all of the God of War games and I am well and truly ready to jump into the new God of War. But this isn't the end. The next review I'm going to do is another game by Ready at Dawn Studios, The Order 1886, and I'm quite keen to figure out if it's as bad as everybody says it is. Everybody thinks it's really short and everybody thinks there's way too many quick time events. So we'll find that out soon enough. And as always, if you liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, that's perfectly fine. I understand, I might be irritable to some. If you dislike it, leave a dislike. Or you could leave a comment and let me know how to improve. And if you think you're going to like this kind of content in the future, subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one.